just bought this banger Vauxhall Astra and Gumtree, and it was in Birmingham too. We think it's got some hidden damages underneath it. However, I believe we can flip it for profit within 2 hours. Join me in this journey and let's do it together.
I'm a straight rider. Get you whacked, ain't gotta pay a fiver.
The journey begins with obviously sourcing cars. I was scrolling through Gumtree looking for some cars to flip, one with a low mileage, an MOT, and it had to be mechanically mint. Then I came across this one here, but there was one seriously bad issue with it, which is why no one was buying it. And I mean no one. The car was up for sale for 6 weeks before I had initially bought it. Of course, we're gonna flip it for profit. First, we'll negotiate and buy the car cheap. Then we'll fix it ready for sale. And finally, we'll see how much we can sell it for. Let's get it. Let's talk more about the car. It was up for £800 and it was fairly local to me. I did some checks in the MOT history and it was all well and good, pretty clear, nothing out of the blue. I messaged the seller and he told me it was initially bought for his son just to drive to university and back. And there was a dash cam in the car too, which is obviously a plus. I clicked the call icon, gave him a ring, and we spoke for about 10 minutes before arranging for me to see the car the very next day. When I went there, I checked over the essentials. The head gasket is a common issue on these cars, so I checked for the warning signs and thankfully it was all well and good. Then I inspected the bodywork and there's a funny story behind it. This was actually the worst part of the car, and truth be told, that's where most of our attention would lie working on the car. After considering this all, I placed my offer. The car was up for £800, but of course it needed some work done to it, about £100 to £200 worth of expenses and work done to it too. So I placed my initial offer of £400 to the seller, to which they declined. By the way guys, you must understand that it's extremely risky business when buying cars from a privately owned individual. There is no comebacks for if something goes wrong with the car, you can't get your money back. So if this is something you're genuinely interested in, be sure to get the proper training. And if that is something you want some help with, book a call with the link in bio, we can get you started. So I did what's only right and walked around the car pointing at all the defects. To which the seller went back into his house, discussed it with his wife, and they agreed to meet me halfway at £550. So we shook on the deal, transferred some funds, and I made my way with the car. With the car now in my driveway, I was able to clearly analyze what needs doing to this car. There's 4 things we need to do. First one is the bodywork. Of course, if I was saying, it looks rough. So we're going to go around the car and make sure it's ready for sale at top level. Next, we're going to work on the engine bay. The oil is pitch black, it needs a change. We can't be selling cars with old engine oil, it risks future problems. The next owner, so we're going to sort that out. Then we have the coil pack and we have the spark plugs. Of course, these are common issues on Vauxhall Astras, especially this 1.4 engine, so we'll swap that over, the car will run even better, and that's something the next owner doesn't have to worry about, so it's peace of mind. And finally, we're going to work on, of course, the headlights, which are faded. A 2009 car, we'll swap that over, have the headlights looking as if they were brand new within 10 minutes. Easy stuff. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the biggest task at hand, the bodywork. It's a funny story. So the previous owner, his wife, actually scratched the side of the car, one of their own cars in the driveway, and it's quite bad. Obviously, they didn't want to go through insurance. Fair enough, UK insurance, am I right? They fixed it themselves, or at least they tried to, using spray cans. It definitely wasn't the best repair, but we could easily sort it out. I've flipped worse for better profits. There was a lot of overspray on the headlights, and there was overspray on the grills too, but the easy fix is enough, so we'll get straight to work. We need to remove the surface spray paint which the previous owner used. They poor repair. So we start with 1000 grit wet and dry sandpaper and attempt to remove it. It wasn't the best, so I went lower down to 800 grit wet and dry paper. It did work a little. I did notice there was some paint coming off. It wasn't the best, so I went down to 600 grit. Being careful, because if you don't want to go too rough where the actual original paint comes off. So with that 600 grit, we removed the paint. It was working. We were making progress. As you can see, we started to get closer to the original paint without affecting the lacquer or anything of that sort. Now that we established 600 grit works a charm, we're able to use 1000 grit around the complete panels. That way we're down to the lacquer layer and we could repaint. Once we cleared all the spray paint from the previous repair that we didn't need, then we had to use 1000 grit over the complete panels we wanted to paint over. Reason being, we need the paint to stick over, a surface to stick on. Imagine there's a shiny surface, right? It's gonna have a harder time sticking to it. So we use a 1000 grit to give it some adhesion. That way our blue base coat will stick over and we can lacquer over and get the original finish. Speaking of the paint, it was important that we matched it to the color code of the car. So we checked inside the door pillar and we find a sticker which shows the exact color code. We went to a local paint shop and that cost us £17. Custom made. Then of course we need some sort of lacquer on top to get the shine out, because the base coat is like a matte finish and metallics, right? So we used the clear lacquer on top and that was £25 for 2k cans, so it's very premium stuff and it gives that rock solid original finish. Then we mask around the car to make sure we don't get any overspray over any panels. As you know, there was overspray on the grille and the tires and even the headlights because the previous owner didn't mask around. So we did that. We went over the windows, the tires, the door handles as well. The little details count. We're ready to paint. paint. We'll only be painting over the areas we previously sanded. We didn't sand around the complete car simply because it was mainly the driver's side we needed to focus on. And these are the results. It definitely transformed the look compared from the before to the after. Now that the bodywork's out the way, let's talk about the engine. It needed a service. The current oil was pitch black. Basically, it hadn't been changed in a while, and this engine is actually chain driven. So when the oil is black, if you don't frequently change it, the chain will snap. Obviously, we can't have that for the next owner, so I brought in my mobile mechanic to switch it over, which is £30 labour. And I bought the oil for £15 for 5 litres. I bought the oil filter, which was £5. I want you to put this into perspective. An oil change normally costs £100 from a mechanic, but we had it done for half the price, £50. You have to work smarter, not harder. We'll just say £50 expenses. Think about it. The car wasn't driven much within the 3 years that the previous owner had it, so it needed a new spark plug set and a new coil pack. So I ordered these from eBay and I fitted them myself. Simple to do, it takes about 10 minutes. So we start by taking the coil pack off with 2 screws. There's a cover first, you have to take the plug off. Once you've done that, it lifts up, you take it out, and we have access to the 4 spark plugs. So I bought a special socket tool to undo each of the spark plugs, remove them and put the new ones in. You can see from the before and the after, it was definitely worth swapping them over, and the car ran a bit better. Running a lot better now, no more misfiring. And truth be told, it probably wasn't needed. However, knowing that these are a common issue on these cars, the next owner doesn't have to worry about these. The car will run good for the next few years. Now that the oil change has been done, the coil pack's been changed, and the spark plugs have been freshly fitted too, job done. We're almost ready to put the car for sale, but the headlights are just still faded, and that's from the sun, from the years of the car being on the road. To fix that, I started with some 800 grit wet and dry sandpaper, applied some water, and removed that factory yellow coating. You can even see the yellow coming out of the water. Once I did that, I progressed all the way up to 2000 grit. Then finally, I used a buffing machine to give us that nice mirror gloss finish. Finally, we needed a bit of valley work on the outside and the inside of the car. I didn't want to go to a car wash, and while that is the easiest option, we risk getting micro scratches in the fresh bodywork we just worked on. So I took it upon myself to get a bucket, fill it with water, some bodywork shampoo, and a microfiber cloth, clean the car myself. That way I could prevent any micro scratches happening to the fresh paintwork we just worked hard to fix, and we could use some wheel clean as well and try out some new products, because that's one thing we like to do, experiment. And that made a fair difference from before and after. Now we have a fresh car that's ready for sale, from the outside at least. Now we can talk about the interior, which is pretty much completely clean. There was nothing needed to it aside from a set of floor mats. When I went and bought the engine oil filter, I bought a set of mats for £10. It was a no-brainer, and here's the before and the after. After throwing them in, you can see the difference. For the sake of £10, I'd always throw in a set of floor mats just for that little difference. Before we put the car up for sale on the platforms, we need to take some nice photos. So I went to an estate with a bit of greenery in the background. I tried to avoid places with a residential area with houses and whatnot, because it doesn't look, it's quite typical. I want to go for something unique. So after I did that, I made sure to highlight features like the dash cam and the alloy wheels. And once that was all done, I put the car up for sale on Facebook Marketplace and Gumtree. We put the car up for sale at £1,200. After about 2 weeks, we had an interested customer, but they wanted delivery. That's perfectly fine, we can do delivery. Before actually arranging all of this, the buyer wanted to see the car in person. Fair enough, they want to do their due diligence. So when they came down the next day, before they came, it had snowed. So I had to shovel off all the snow off the car, all the ice, and the car wasn't starting because there was no fuel in it. I had to go to the petrol station, put some fuel in the tank, bring it back, put some fuel in the car, and now it starts. Job done. When the buyer arrived, they were happy with the car. They had a little test drive and they show all the documents with the car. Perfect. He left £100 deposit and we arranged delivery for the very next day. Now the next day arrives and I give my delivery driver a ring. We arranged for the delivery to be about £50 towards myself, which is perfectly fine. I'd be charging £100 for delivery, so it'd be about £50 profit. That's perfect. When the driver arrives, we load the car onto his truck and we make our way to the buyer's address. We gave the buyer a call and tell him we're on the way, and when we get there, we offload the car, take the full payment, which is £1,300. So £1,200 for the car and £100 for the delivery, and of course minus the deposit, £100 cash. We're ready to go. We were shook on the deal, we're all happy, and we made our way back. Happy days, that's the deal done. Let's do a breakdown of how much profit we actually made on the car. All in, we bought the car for £550 and our expenses worked out to be about £150. That's for working on the car, so the bodywork and whatnot. We had to work on the coil pack, spark plugs, we replaced those, and of course we had to get the car serviced too. About £150, no brainer. Those expenses were fairly low, so when we sold the car and we made delivery on the profit too, it worked out to about over £600 worth of profit, which is definitely worth it for about a couple hours of work. So definitely can't complain with that result, seeing as there are cars which you spend a lot more on to make less profit. For example, example, sometimes people spend £2,000 in a car to make £500 back. We spent £550 in a car and made over £600 back, so we basically doubled our money in 2 hours of work. I want you to put that into perspective. Other people spend this much to make this much, whereas we spent this much to make this much back. It's a no-brainer. Definitely a strong result. Moving forward, let's think about the next car flip. What do you guys think we should do? Should we take the money in total we got, so £1,200, and then reinvest that into a better car? Or should we try repeating the same result on another similar car? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. We are growing the channel and I would appreciate your support. If you are looking to start car flipping but you're not sure exactly how to get started and you want to avoid making costly mistakes like buying the wrong cars or not knowing exactly what to look for, and you want to start making profits as soon as possible, drop me a DM on Instagram with the word flips, or you can book a call with the link in bio and see if you're a good fit to work with me on my one-to-one mentorship program. These are some of the results that we've achieved for other complete beginners. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.
Show me the money!